Hi, and welcome to tonight's live broadcast. So we're looking at delay tonight, so it should be fairly interesting. Now, hold on, I'll just sort this audio sound out just for a second. Here we go, that's better. So hopefully my audio is working. We're going to try and use our audio demonstration again tonight, so hopefully we can show you a few things on delay. If you have any kind of qualms about the audio, please tweet me at Music Tech 101 just so I can have a little look and sort them out. Hopefully we're okay. We tried this last week and it all worked okay. So we're going to be looking at delay tonight. That is our mission. Before we get started though, this week we've been hard at work creating a couple more courses for the A-level Music Tech. So we've just started creating a Task 1C course based around house music and Seven Nation Army. That's going really well. There's free lessons available now for that. So please go and check that out. Just give me 2 seconds. I just need to sort this audio out. Okay, I think that's better. Okay. And also the other one is the Task 3C, which is based around composing using technology. Also, we've got free lessons like that. So we're just looking at the research at the moment, and then we're going to move on to kind of how to develop these intricate ideas using technology. So it should be really interesting. Stay posted for that. But now on to the show. So here's what we're going to deliver tonight. So we're going to look at the different kinds of delay, followed by the parameters of a delay effect, how to apply the delay effect, and then we're going to do this demonstration. So hopefully that goes well. And then if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop a question in, either using the Twitter account at MusicTech101 or any of the usual Q&A pages, and we'll monitor them during this section, okay? So the different kinds of effects. So when we're thinking about delay, we're thinking about taking this original signal and doubling it in some way and creating these intricate alternative rhythms that are coming out of this delay pattern, okay? And this can be very subtle or this can be more complex, okay? And we're going to look at both. We're going to look at creating these subtle effects followed by the complex. Now, the most obvious kind of delay effect is this idea of reverb. Now, I do distinguish between reverb and delay just purely because I think of reverb as the ambience to your mix and something that is absolutely needed, and then I think of delay as the more creative approach to your mix, something that's definitely needed and definitely useful for adding depth to your mix, but it can also be used more creatively to create these complex patterns and create these complex textures for your individual instruments and whole mix. Okay, the next ones we have are this analog delay and echo units and slapback echo, all of which use this idea of running tape through a system and then recording onto the tape the original signal and then pushing the recorded signal out through the playback head. Okay, and we'll have a look at that in a second. And then we move on to the more modern digital delays and multi-tap delays. And then we look at a recording methods of getting delay, which is this double tracking and automatic double tracking ADT. So here is one of the first tape delays. And as you can see, it's just basically a tape machine. And what happens is you have these short lengths of tape reel that are just fed through these spines and through all these bits and just run. So maybe you just get, maybe half a minute's worth of tape on that, maybe sometimes less, maybe sometimes just one reel that just keeps going around. And depending on how much tape you have, it's depending on how much the loop will happen, on how much delay you have. The other thing this is dependent on is the heads, okay? So we have some fixed play heads here, and then we have the record head, okay? And by moving the record head around, it determines how much delay you get from when the audio signal is pushed onto the tape and then received by the playback heads. And all the time this is happening, you've also got your original recording going straight out to the speakers. Okay, so your original sound going straight out, and then a tenth of a second later followed by this. Now this is really interesting, and back in sort of like 1950s, Sam Phillips developed the slapback echo, and he worked with people like Elvis Presley at Sun Records, and it drove other record companies wild because they couldn't understand how he was getting these really lush vocal sounds. And this was his big secret. This slapback echo was his big secret, running this tape through and kind of capturing it again and then passing it out. And it was driving everyone nuts in the recording industry because they couldn't produce this, and he was producing these lush sounds, and that's why, or part of the reason, Sun Records was so popular. So now we're looking at other tape. Now this is a very popular Roland Space Echo, and inside this unit you have a reel of tape, and all of these parameters basically emulate what you saw on that big reel just a minute ago. A bit more complex, of course, and you've got a few more controls, and you can actually push different kinds of signals onto the tape, and you can affect it in different ways. And it's worth having a look, and there's some really good tutorials out there for the Space Echo, and it is ridiculously popular. It's used on lots of records even today. Okay, so it's worth kind of having a look at that and trying that one out. Okay, and then we move on to our digitals. So you've got a couple of digitals on here that I've illustrated, and that is the multi-tap, where you can basically tap out the delays as you want them to happen, or you have this digital. Now, each digital delay is slightly different, or actually can be massively different, and the parameters that are used in delays are not always the same, and there's no real labeling convention. They're always called something slightly different. So the best way of learning a delay is actually just to play with it. There's a few ways that you should apply it to your track, and we'll discuss that in a minute, but mostly it's the way that you play with it and you kind of find these things out that makes it really interesting. That's what's so good about delay, and you have different parameters. In this one here, you see that middle section where it says low cut, high cut. This is allowing you to tweak the frequency envelope, which is really interesting. And then on the left hand side, you've got these groove envelopes which you can kind of send out different patterns, or you can send the multiples out as different patterns, which is really interesting. And we'll have a look at that, and we'll load this particular delay up, and we'll see what the effects are, and we'll have a look at some of the presets and kind of go through it in best practice. Okay. Oh, and I missed that last one. Sorry about that. So double tracking and automatic double tracking are fairly similar, and they can be considered as kind of this delay effect. And it was definitely an alternative to sort of slapback delay. Well, what happens if you've got double tracking? It's basically where you get one, say a vocalist or an acoustic guitarist, where they play their original track in, they record their first track in, and then they record a second one. So it's done in real time. Record one, and then listen to that first one back whilst recording the second one. And what this gives you is slight differences in the way that it's played, and the way that the instrument or the vocal bounce against each other is what creates this really nice patterns. And that's what double tracking is so popular. And what you'll sometimes find is double tracking, where you've got this acoustic guitar and one is played hard left in the speaker and one is played hard right in the speaker, and it gives this kind of pulsing effect, and it's really nice. Automatic double tracking is very similar, but rather than the musician recording the track again, the engineer just duplicates that track onto another track and then offsets the pattern by a fraction. And they can also tweak the EQ envelopes and things like that to make it kind of different as well. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. The parameters then, so we're just picking on just a few parameters that are kind of, they're not generic at all, and they're always labeled something different, but we're just having a look at this echo delay that we've got here. Now, it's important to remember that what you're trying to achieve with a delay effect is taking this original sound and then creating another sound and offsetting it, okay? So that was the original intention for delay, creating one sound, creating the same sound again, and just offsetting it by a certain amount of seconds or milliseconds so that they play together, and giving these really intricate things. And that's where these intricate rhythms come into it as well. So some of the settings, so the delay time obviously determines the actual synchronization between the original sound and the secondary sound. The feedback is how much of the delay signal is then processed. So do you want it processed at the same level, so 100%, or less than the same level, or higher than the same level? The color or the filter is basically this idea of taking out frequencies in the delay part of the signal, so not the original but the delay, or boosting certain frequencies in the signal, okay, to give the repeat a little bit of difference between the original sound. Now, the wet and dry is basically a way of mixing the two signals together. Okay, how to apply it. Now, if you're trying to create your intricate rhythms, or you're trying to do something a bit creative, it's okay to do a delay as an insert, okay? And this gives you the chance for the delay to be as part of the track, okay? So it takes over the track as 100%, and it gives you that opportunity for it to be part of the track and create these really lovely textures. If you just want it as a bit of to add detail to the actual instrument or voice, then that's where we use that aux send. And if you look at my little picture here, I've got this aux send where it says bus 1, which is this aux 1 bus, and I've got my digital delay, and then I've just put a little bit of that delay on, okay? So that's where my aux send comes in, rather than this echo here, which is done as an insert. So, and that will just allow me to control the amount of delay that I put onto the signal, okay? And we'll show you this in just 2 seconds when we go over to the main demonstration, okay? So in the demonstration, what we're going to try and do is we're going to apply various delays to a vocal as a send, okay? So we're going to see how we can control the delay as part of our signal. Then we're going to try the same process, but this time as an insert. And then we're going to look at these creating complex rhythms. And I've set up sort of like this little just drum beat. It's not even a drum beat, it's just a couple of beats, okay? And show you how we can create drum loops or drum patterns or percussive patterns that just use delay, okay? So really interesting. Give me just 2 seconds to kind of switch over to the other one. It takes me a little bit of time because of the way I've had to set this audio up, okay? So just give me 2 seconds. So it's gone a bit dark at the minute. So here we go, we're on. So this is my track as it is. So the first one we're going to look at is this vocal. And I've just set up this vocal. It's the same one we used last week with the noise gating tutorial. I've just put a little bit of EQ, nothing major there. So here is my dry signal, and I'm sorry for the audio, it is my voice on here. This is the most unusual story. So as you can hear, it's quite dry. So the first thing I want to do is just put some reverb on. So this first bus here, this first aux send is just a reverb. So let's turn that on. And I've just turned it up ever so slightly. You can put it on as much as you want. If I turn it all the way up, you'll hear it's quite horrible. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting my picture. Okay, so now we've got a bit of room on there, and that's fine. That's not a delay, but you can hear that it is affecting the track in that way, okay? So the next one we're going to try out is this idea of, let me just get it up for us, this idea of a tape delay. And the first setting, I've turned this up, and I'll turn it up a little bit more so we can hear it, but I've actually turned the delay off for a second, just to show you how to kind of control it from the off. Now what I've done here is I've turned the wet to 0. And then I've turned the feedback to 0 as well. So there's no delay signal happening at this point. So let's just press play. This is the most unusual story. Now let's increase the wetness. Let's take it all the way up to here. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting my picture in a most unusual world. So you can hear that the rhythms are quite good. And I've got the groove set to this kind of crotchet pattern, okay? Now let's turn the feedback up and see what happens. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. Sorry about that. But you can see what the feedback does by me pushing it heavy. And it's just pushing that signal past 100% and just kind of giving you so much more. This is the most unusual story. Now the other thing we can do is, like we said before with this high cut, we can actually get rid of all the low frequencies. So we just push the high frequencies through the actual delay signal. So the original signal will be the same, but the delay signal will be slightly different. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting my picture in a most unusual world. She can call out a frame like she's... And then we can change the groove. So let's make the groove this quaver pattern. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting my picture. In a most unusual world, she can call out a frame like she's had. You can hear that fluttering effect. And it's interesting. Now, the good thing about delay is you're not on your own. What you'll find with any kind of Dawn is that there's loads and loads and loads of presets. And it's not a bad idea to go to your presets first. So you've got this kind of slapback preset here. Let's have a little listen to this one. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting. And you can hear how subtle that is. And that's why it drove engineers wild, is because of how subtle it is. And it's like, what the hell is that? How's that even happening? And when you reduce the amount, it's just giving it so much more life. So here we go. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting. Okay, so that's the tape delay. And now there are a lot of other delays, especially in Logic, especially in Cubase, or all of them. In fact, there's hundreds. Now, the newest one in Logic is this delay designer. So with the delay design, same again, you've got loads of presets and they're really, really complex, really awesome. So you can come to one and you can spend hours just finding the right ones and manipulating them and just seeing what they do. And it is worth just having a little play and just seeing how they work. This is the most unusual story of a most. And that's a bit hard. That's very hard. Let's go simple. Let's go for this slow pan. Let's see what this is all about. This is the most unusual story of a most unusual girl. She's painting my picture. Okay, so we have lots of things, and when you get this into the mix with lots of different instruments, you know, that's where it really starts coming alive. So don't sell delay down the river just because it sounds a bit weird and wacky on its own. It's not until you get it in the mix that it starts kind of shaping things and kind of making things really awesome. Now, let's mute this one and let's go to our percussive track here. Now, I'll just put this on a loop, take it off mute. Okay, so in Ultra Beat, I've just created a little pattern, and you'll see from here that it's just got 2 beats. Sounds like this. And I've done nothing special to it. Literally created this in Ultra Beat in one of the patterns there. So let me just show you the pattern. It's not massively complex. There it is. Dragged it to the stage. There's nothing else happening in Ultra Beat that you need to worry about. And then I've got this echo effect patched in as an insert. Okay. So just play that one more time just so you can hear that, and then I'll put the echo on. And remember, it's an insert now rather than a send. So it's taking over 100% of the channel. And that's what's going to make it really, really interesting. Okay, so now let's turn this echo on. I'll bring up the echo so you can see it's just a very, very simple delay effect. Okay, and that's really simple. And you can see straight away, by not really being a percussive player, you can already get some really nice effects out of that and some really nice results. Now imagine if we applied something a lot more complex, like the delay designer that we just saw a moment ago. So here we are. We'll go to our complex patterns. We'll go to this gallop one. I checked this one out earlier and it's pretty awesome. So here we go. I'm just going to get rid of this one. Oops. Now, how cool is that? Without doing anything, without being a percussive player, without kind of knowing anything, I've kind of done that. You imagine putting samples through this, like scratch samples or something. How cool would that be? So lots and lots and lots and lots of flexibility, lots of things for the creative mind as well. And it's something that delay often gets overlooked at as a creative tool, and it really is. It's a massive creative tool, and you should definitely be experimenting with the flexibility and what it can give you. And the good thing, I mean, how much would you pay a percussion player to come in and do something like that and keep it in time the way it is, and kind of get these kind of notes just perfect like that? I mean, it's brilliant. Okay, we'll try one more before we kind of call it a day with this. But one thing you should come away with after this session is actually go away, look at your mixes and try and use delay. It's going to be a massive benefit to you. And that's nice. A rising pitch effect. How cool is that? So, I mean, absolutely loads to think about. Even just looking at this now and just kind of going, wow, there's so much I could do with this. Okay, so have a look at that. Right, we'll go back to the presentation now. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. And we'll just load up the presentation just for the final Q&A, see who's around. So it looks like we've got a few people in tonight. So while I go and check out all the different centers for our Q&A, a couple of questions that have come in this week, and it's basically stuff that I've already gone through, but I thought I'd just kind of illustrate the point that these guys have written in. So I love using delay and experimenting with the various settings, but I don't necessarily know what all of these settings do. Does this really matter? And as shown just then, no, it really doesn't matter. The fact is you should be using it. And if you don't understand what it does, then you need to experiment more and kind of get an idea. And the other thing you can do, which I didn't say, is because it's so hard to get the exact right one, and you could do all these experiments, and all of a sudden you get the right one and you think, oh my God, how am I going to use this in all my productions because I really want to? And you can save your presets. And that's something you should definitely do. In the actual plugins themselves, you can save your presets. So you can do all these experiments, get it exactly the way you want it, and then save your preset. Job done. Fantastic. And that's the way you should be thinking about it. Use it, definitely. And then my fantastic user here that said, make sure you mention Sam Phillips and the development of the slapback delay. Elvis Presley rocks. And absolutely, yes, he does. And definitely Sam Phillips is the man. If you don't know who Sam Phillips is, you should definitely go and do that research. So, oh, just need to check on my other ones, don't I? Okay, so let me just check, see what we've got on the Q&A. Bear with me for a second. So if you have got any questions, please feel free to. I'm going to hang out probably 15 minutes after the show's finished as well. So if you got any after the show, please feel free to send me a message and I'll write back to you. So we've got none there. What about there? Okay, last one on this bit. Oh, fantastic stuff, guys. Cool. Okay, so it doesn't look like obviously we did a good job of answering all them, but once again, there's so much to kind of learn with delay and too much to fit into a kind of half an hour blog. So please do your experiment, do your research on musictechstudent.co.uk. There's loads of research that we've done on delay that you can just have a little look at and just go through. If you've got any questions during the week or you want to sign up to our newsletter, please do, or email us or join us on Facebook, Twitter and Google, and you'll get all the latest news and resources that we're doing. Next week's webinar, we're going to continue with this basics series, and we're going to be looking at distortion. So it's going to be a really interesting one. I hope you've enjoyed tonight, and I'll see you next week.